Okay, how do I know he or she is the one? So I can actually do a 4-hour seminars on this. But because I know that you guys are also spiritual, so smart, so intelligent, I don't have to, wrap around the meat with, all nice packagings. I can just go straight to the principles and what the Bible says and what do I think about decision making in building a relationship. Let's go to the core of the message in the Bible about marriage. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, right? This is the beginning. Let me jump straight to verse 28. I already quoted it yesterday, but let me quote it once again. Genesis 1:28 said that God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number," or "be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Fill the earth, conquer it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Let me give you an illustration on this matter quickly first. Can I find a couple to be representing Adam and Eve? You want a seasoned couple or a young couple? We have a seasoned couple down here. A seasoned one, okay. Mr. Adam and Mrs. Eve, please come forward. Your big one for them. Pak Lukas and Ibu Kurniati. Okay, let's face me. Let's assume that I play God. I would be God. Okay. In that verse I have just read, God blessed them, and then God spoke over them, right? And what did God say? Be fruitful and multiply. And you guys know that everything God said came into pass immediately. It didn't take time for that to come to pass. This was actually the first time when God said something, and what He said did not come into pass immediately. God said, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth." It didn't happen like suddenly Adam and Eve was like so surprised, like, "Oh, whoa, they're all here." But it wasn't. Because that was the first time, and God wasn't surprised, it was the first time that God put His word, the power to make what wasn't into existence, into Adam and Eve. Because prior to that, whenever He said, "Let there be light," bam, the light was there. Let the water separate from the sky. Whatever He spoke came into pass because He created the whole earth with His word. That was the first time when He spoke, and what He spoke did not come into pass immediately. But the word and the potential to make themselves into many was placed into Adam and Eve. To multiply was the first blessings that God gave Adam and Eve. And then the next one was to conquer earth, to subdue land, water, the sea, and the air. There are 3 domains for you to conquer. Got it? Yeah. That was the blessings. Not only the potential to multiply themselves, but the potential to conquer and to subdue earth was placed inside Adam and Eve. In other words, what they decided to do after that was up to them. If the earth will not be filled, it's solely their responsibility. Yeah, but God is omnipotent. He can do everything. Yeah, but He has chosen to share that power with human beings. Why there's war? Why there's famine? Ask them, what did they do with what they have?
I don't know.
Right. Of course He doesn't. Right. You get what I'm saying? Because the potential and the capacity to manage the earth was given to them. And then I'm going to add on before I quote the verse. In order for Adam and Eve to be able to manage earth, God did not start up a company. He did not give them, a corporation. He did not give them even church. He did not give them any other form of organization. He gave them a family. So family was the foundation for Adam and Eve to fulfill, to be fruitful, to multiply, and to conquer earth. So family is actually the foundation. I literally can talk to you whole day about this truth, because our identity, our self-confidence, our sense of belonging, our self-image, all will be built and has to be built in the family. And because God's blessing is based and put in the family, the devil knows that. If I can destroy the foundation, I can destroy all God's purposes and plans for the future. If I can destroy a marriage, and if I can destroy a family, I would have the chance to destroy a child's identity, a child's potential, a child's sense of confidence, a child's sense of belonging, and all its dreams and visions and purposes will be destroyed only if I get the chance to impact this family or the marriage. Make sense to you? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for Adam and Eve, Pak Lukas, Pak Ibu Kun. Thank you. So that's the foundation first. All right? Okay, let's move on to another verse. Let's move on to chapter 2. This is another foundation I want to lay. Chapter 2. Wow. My Bible hangs. It's really strange. It doesn't move. It's all right. Saying quickly. Saying quick. Don't stop. Verse 24. Verse 24. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife. That is why. Why? Because earth was given to Adam and Eve to manage, to subdue, to conquer. That's the reason why a man should leave his father and mother. By the way, it's not only the man, but man is actually used for male and female. So male and female actually has to leave their parents to be united. So, and they have to become one flesh. There are two keywords there that you have to pay attention to. Number one is united. United means when they came together on the wedding day, they are united. And then another word there, another key word is becoming or become one. So, to be united is an event. It's when you get together and you are blessed before God. Well, in your context, maybe when you go to the, I don't know, where's registration office or what, where do you go? Well, I mean, not Christian, but in general. If you want to be married, where you go? You go to court. Oh, wow. Only criminals go to court, usually. You go to court, wow. Well, in Europe, people usually go to registration office. It's just a civil office. And you appear in front of a civil officer, and that person would marry you. But not in Indonesia. In Indonesia, you go to stand before God, and only God can put two people together, and the state and the government only register it. So they only confirm the unity. So you stand before God, but unity is this event, or unity is an event, or standing before God to be united is an event, but becoming one is the process. Okay? I'm laying foundation so that I can quickly give you the principle how to decide, but you got to understand the principle first. So becoming one is the process. So how to become one, okay? Right. Physically, if you both, male and female, becoming one, physically we can feel the earth. Right. You only have to become one physically. However, in order for human being to conquer earth, what has to become one is not only physical. And if you know that human being, we are physical, we are emotional, and we are spiritual. Got it? Spiritual. So, if a man and a woman are united or becoming one physically, you can fulfill the first blessing. You can fill the earth. But the children that are born may not be strong enough to conquer earth. Because what we talk about, anxiety and all the other things, identity, hurt, etc., all has to do with emotional and spiritual strength. Hence, in order for a couple, a married couple, or a family to raise strong children that would have that capacity to conquer earth, they have to emotionally and spiritually becoming one. And that's a challenge. Because what is emotional? It is what is in your mind. This is what you feel, feelings. And it is what you want, your will. It is in your soul. What you want, what you think, and what you feel. So a lot of people who are in the married relationship are living in the same house, sleeping on the same bed, sharing the same pillow, make them physically very close, but they feel very distant emotionally because he or she doesn't know what his or her spouse is thinking, how he or she is feeling, or what he or she wants for the future. Forget about the spiritual side. Are you getting what I'm saying? Yeah. So, becoming one in this case is very challenging, not in the physical part, but the emotional part. Okay? The verb for becoming one emotionally, if you want to write down, ladies, boys, the key word, the verb for becoming one in your soul, in your mind, is exchanging thoughts, exchanging feelings, and exchanging dreams. So the key word, the verb is exchange. So it's far more important when you are dating someone. Far more important to exchange what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what your dreams are than exchanging your saliva. Only the old one said amen. The young one said, "Don't you know I look forward to it?" I know. Because physically close does not give you the foundation you need to become one. Make sense to you? Got it? Okay. I haven't started. It's just the foundation. Okay, the question is, how do I know he or she is the one? So you got to talk a lot, right? You got to exchange thoughts. You got to find out what he is thinking or what she is thinking, but just the beginning of the process of getting to know each other. By the way, the principle of feeling close to someone, the psalmist was telling us, I think it's Psalm 139, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not wrong. He was saying that I felt God is so close to me because he understood how I felt. He knows what I want. He already prepared before what I asked for. You get what I'm saying? So that's the basic principles. You would always feel close to anybody whom you think would know how you think or what you think about. and how you would feel and would understand even without a lot of explanation. You feel that person is the closest to me because he or she would not misunderstand me. Got it? So, in other words, if you want someone to be close to you, then you must be able to explain what you think and share how you feel and then describe what you want to that person. If you want him or her to be close to you. On the other hand, if you know that person, that very person should not be close to you, then don't share what you think, how you feel, what you want to that person. I've been applying this in my office at church. If I know there are some person or certain person I want to bring them closer in the ministry, in the position, and I'm preparing that person to be promoted, etc., then I would purposely take time to have coffee, to have lunch, to spare personal time. Without promising anything, I'll start sharing about what I think about how the church would move towards to, or where the church should move to in the future. I will start share about what I think, or in order for him or her to understand me, I would take a specific incident or events to use as an example, and then I would explain or tell her or him about what I think, how I felt when that happened, in order for him or her to get to know me closer. So if you're dating, there's actually the verb that you constantly use all the time. It's all emotional. You would not get bored if you actually strategically use your time to build closeness in that sense. Make sense to you? Well, you can hold hands while it's nice, it's very nice and warm feeling all the time. But other than bringing you physically close to each other, it would help you to get closer in any sense. But if you constantly work on that, so that's the basic, okay? Now, how to know how far we've gone through in our relationship, how close that person has been or is in my relationship or in my life, when do I decide that that's it? Okay? So I'm going to use a certain mind map process with you. So I would just suggest to use the way I use it when I was teaching the young people in my church. I was using them to use an analogy of a house in order to describe closeness and relationship. Well, let's use the analogy of a house in the U.S. In the U.S., usually you would have courtyard. You call courtyard outside the house. Courtyard. Let's use lawn or courtyard as one of the space. And then other than courtyard, usually, if I'm not mistaken, you have a front living room, right? You have space when guests coming, you receive those guests. But it's more formal guest kind of thing, right? And you would have another room usually for your family to hang out. I think in the U.S. context, probably kitchen, right? Kitchen would be the place where you would allow a closer friend of the family to come in, right? A more official guest would stay in the front living room. Is that right? Is that correct? Okay, if that's the case, we're going to use, let's say, this is front yard, courtyard, living room, kitchen. Okay, let's say kitchen, and then the last room, let's say bedroom. All right? So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 categories of closeness to describe relationship. So when you meet someone that you don't know at all, I would consider people on the roadside that you don't know about. Once you invite or you have someone who steps into your courtyard, at least you know his or her name, right? Right, at least. Hi, John, Jimmy, Linda, Mary, right? So those are friends, or I don't know, acquaintance? Okay, let's say acquaintance. If you put here, well, this is not an absolute formula, it's just the way I mind map, right? You can do your own mind mapping. Let's say acquaintance here, okay? If you would want to move that person into your living room, you need to describe, you may want to put it now into your mind map, criteria, what would you need for someone to qualify from being acquaintance to be your friend? He must be Indonesian. Otherwise, no way, Jose. It's up to you. It's your condition. Oh, she must be rich. She must be 6 foot tall. She must be 5 or whatever. So you put on your, you put your own condition, your own, requirements. What that person needs to to qualify to be your friend. So, and then from being a friend to a close friend, you need another requirement, you need another set of filters you use to bring somebody into your personal space or to call them your close friends. But no matter how close that person is, you would not bring them to your bedroom. What I mean by bedroom is not just your friend doing homework in your sleeping room. What I mean by bedroom is a very private area where only commitment or marriage or, how should I put it? If life commitment probably would be the requirement needed for someone to enter this space. The same applies for business partnership. Unless you have a certain commitment with a certain set of values, you won't be able to enter this relationship. It would be very harmful if you are actually bringing someone with no filters into that relationship, and then you ended up finding that person is bringing harm to yourself, whether it's business or friendship or marriage. So one night stand is actually finding someone here and bringing that person all the way here within a very short period of time. It's no wonder if you're going to harm yourself. So, coming back to that question, how do I know he or she is the person? I have a very specific framework and mind map in order for me to bring someone into my life. In my context, in our context, ever since I dated Hannah for the first time until I proposed to her, it was less than 3 months. It's not the time which is the matter. It is what you need to find in the time. That's what's important. Because 3 years does not guarantee you if you don't have a clear framework. You get what I'm saying? 3 months could be too fast if you don't have any framework. But even 2 months would be too long if you have a very clear one. Especially when you find and you know how to actually prove what you think you find is true. So you need time to prove all the values and qualities. Are you okay so far? Yeah. Or am I boring you? No, you're not bored? Okay. Now question is, how do I know in 3 months that he or she is the one? So I would suggest that I would propose here, because when I'm suggesting to my daughter, I say, I would not go on trial and error for dating. I would have lots of friends, but once I said that I'm going steady, using the terms of Singaporean call it going steady. You know why they call it going steady? I don't know. Maybe here called going shaky, here going steady. So man, when you really go serious into that relationship, when you become girlfriend, boyfriend, so I would suggest, especially when I talk to my daughter, I say, I would have lots of friends here, but I would not consider, even I have closer friend than normal friend, but I would not consider it a boyfriend or girlfriend unless I already know that he or she passes a certain criteria. Unless I'm serious that I'm going to build a future with him or her. Make sense to you? Reason why, because you don't want to have on your portfolio, you have broken up 15 times. Just because you dated that person or that 15 person, only some you went out twice, some you've been with them for a very short period of time and only talk over the phones, etc., etc. I would not consider that a serious relationship. That's just, in Indonesian terms, it's called PDKT, nggak jelas gitu ya. It's just a moment of a period of time when you try to get to know each other, but it doesn't mean much. Well, when you turn out not being anything, or when that relationship turn out not becoming something serious, so what? It would not go into your portfolio. Just something you can just leave behind. However, during this process, as I suggested, what you need to explore is emotional contact. That's the most important part. So when I was dating Hannah, we talked a lot about lives. So I still remember in the first date, right? I told her about my ex, my past. While I'm a very straightforward guy, but for her, I did not realize that was a bit too much on the first date. So for her was a bit too much of an information. I told her about, so she was like, I didn't ask, I don't want to know, because I called her up that day. I still remember that was 31st of January, 1998. It was lunchtime, and she was having lunch with her girlfriends in a hotel, and I called her up. I said, "Are you free tonight?" She said, "Yes." So we went out. Jakarta at Planet Hollywood. We were eating. Then I told her about my ex. So the one that I was still in the relationship, yeah, not really off yet. I told her that I have a girlfriend, and the reason we are separating because we have different choices. So she's Singaporean, I'm Indonesian, and I chose to serve God, and I chose to live in Germany, and because of choices, I think we have to separate ways. We have to separate our ways, and her family was actually offering me to come back and to work for her family in Singapore, but I refused because I felt that my calling is not coming back to Indonesia or to Singapore yet, but to stay back in Germany. So I asked her if I would, and we would, I would go into next level, into deeper relationship with you. Would that be an option? That's kind of, direction I'm going. So I dated her for the next 7 days, right? 7 days in a row, from February the 1st to February, no, not from February the 1st. February the 1st, I went to Makassar. I came back on the 6th, right? Pastor Jeffrey got married on the 7th. So she was the bridesmaid. I was the best man. So between February the 1st and February the 6th, I went to ministry in Makassar. I came back. And then on the 6th, we went to find ties. And then from the 7th, during the whole day of weddings, we were bridesmaids and the best man. We stick together all the time. And I like that day. And we get to talk a lot. And at that time, a lot of Hannah's friends were staring at me like, what is this guy doing? Wait, where does he come from? Because, they were all there already in the church in Jakarta. While I'm from Germany, I just came back. And they only know that he's Jeffrey's or Pastor Jeffrey's friend. Jeffrey wasn't pastor yet, so he is Jeffrey's friend, and he's the best man, and he stick with Hannah. And by the way, Hannah got a lot of fans at that time going after her. So you can imagine how many pairs of eyes were staring at me on that wedding day while she stick with me. So then from February 7th through February 14th, I was seeing her every day. So we parted on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Because my flight is daytime, I think in the afternoon, we could only do a Valentine lunch. It's not official because we were not officially dating yet. But on that lunch, I asked her, I said, after 7 days of exploration, right, would you want to consider, I asked her this, would you want to consider to not consider other boy anymore? Would you consider not to consider others? Because during the 7 days, there's no string attached and no commitment, right? There's no promises, just exploring. So we're just having dinner, lunch, and spending time, talking, chatting, exchanging thoughts, exchanging feelings, and futures, and et cetera, et cetera. Then I asked her, would you be willing to consider not to consider others anymore? And I would, because actually, if I would go back, I would have no one to consider. while she would have a lot others to consider, right? So I was like putting that trap. And she said, yeah. I said, okay, I'm all good then. Okay, I can live in peace, right? So she said, okay. And then that was February 14th. And then April, she came over to Germany. I wanted to show her the life that she would have if she would want to be serious in this relationship. The reason I can move fast to bring her forward is because I was looking for one thing. Would she be able to step into that role to serve God together with me? Because that was the very thing that the previous one wasn't able to. Because I did not want, to put myself between, her family and God and, too many options that I can't influence. So that's why when I get to know Hannah, that was the very thing that I went after. So I showed her my calling, showed her my life, and then, of course, I liked her. I was very attracted to her, and she was very attracted to me. I hope. And then when she came to Germany and she saw my whole life, basically everything, and then I proposed to her. When I felt like, she understood my life and she's willing to take that step. It's not easy. Let me explain to you what risk she was taking. She has to leave her stable job back. She was a brand manager for a very, very luxurious brand in Indonesia. It's an imported fashion brand. And she was the brand manager, has a very high-paid salary and a stable job, has all her friends and church and everything in Jakarta. And coming to Germany at that time, except a vision of serving God and loving God, nothing else to hope for. I don't have stable income. There's no church that would guarantee my income or my stability. I have to work to finance my ministry. I was in ministry, but I have to work and do business to finance my own ministry. So I have no stability and guarantee to offer her, except this good-looking. That's called self-confident, right? But he's saying, not too much though, don't get over it. So, accept my life. So I was offering it to Hannah, and she said yes. So either was God, or it was just love. That, sometimes love makes you, stupid, You don't think, right? You don't think when you fall in love because all those hormones and brain chemicals, hinders you from thinking. But I guess it was God, and she said yes. So that was April when I proposed to her. In the same year, in November, we got married. A lot of people say well, that was too fast. Well, it depends. And if you have the basics questions answered, you get what I'm saying? You know exactly what you want and you need, and you find it, then you can go for it. So what would be the criteria for you to even want to date someone? It's up to you. You can ask further questions if you want, but it's totally up to you. If you have no criteria, means anybody can walk into your life and walk out. Don't let it happen. You are the one setting all the criteria and all the requirements in order for someone to come into your life. If you have it set, then you're safe. A lot of people say, I want to be friend only with Christians. Well, I'm not against it, but I can be friend with anybody. I just don't let anybody to be my close friends. There are certain type of people whom I allow to be my close friends. Only certain type of values I would allow it to be my inner circle friends. Make sense to you? Yeah. This framework will help you set up your thinking process to decide whether he or she is the person. So let me give you a few values you can put into those frameworks and mind map. I would probably suggest maturity would be one of the key you want to put there. You want to marry a mature person. And taking from the Bible, maturity is measured not by age, nor position, or wealth, or achievements, because there are a lot of immature people who have great achievements in their lives. They are great achievers, but they're not mature. So how do I know that he or she is mature? The Bible in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11, if you want to take the verse down into your notes, feel free, but I'm just going to paraphrase that verse to you. Paul said that when I was a child, I think as a child, I reason as a child, and I talk like a child. But when I grew up, I leave all those traits. In other words, definition for maturity is identifying how someone thinks, how someone reasons, and how someone talks. Number one, maturity. All right? Another definition for maturity is self-control. A lot of older people who don't have self-control, they have never practiced self-control, so they ended up in their marriage, in their relationship, they ended up, having challenges because both parties in the relationship do not have self-control, and they ended up hurting each other. So that's, I think, for relationship. Any follow-up question before I move on to the matters of the heart? Any further follow-up questions? No? All good? All good? Yeah. So, just to follow up on that question, should I have a Christian boyfriend? Should I date Christian only? You can answer it for yourself. If you are dating a non-Christian person, answer this to me. How are you going to become one in the way of your thinking when your values are different? It's going to be tough. It could go on financial issues, parenting, child raising, you get what I'm saying? Even food. There are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of challenges to overcome when you have to fill in the blanks. So you answer yourself to that. So the reason I give you maturity is if you have a mature person, the way of thinking is easier for you to exchange, because you will know how to express yourself, and you know how to get to know your spouse's mind and how he or she feels and what he or she wants. So, if that's answering your questions, let's move on to hard issues. Okay? That's relationship. I think we've checked that one. Let's go on. Okay, let's go from. Sometimes one's despair is so great that they fall into depression. How can they escape it and find meaning? Okay, this is a good question. How do we nurture and maintain good thoughts, especially when we are dealing with anxiety and worry? Similar. How do you stay hopeful, faithful during times of extreme struggle? It's easy to lose hope and spirit. How should we embrace season of rest, especially when serving or doing has become an essential part of our lives and walk with God? So how do we embrace season of rest, especially when serving and doing has become an essential part of life? Oh, Pastor, this person probably need a break. Irene, is that you? Could be Irene's handwriting. How do we stay healthy spiritually without burning out? See? This is second question. I was reading question number 1. I was predicting burnout, and it's already being answered. How do we stay healthy? If we do burn out, how to resolve? Let me answer this quickly first. Rest, of course, rest, but how do we embrace it? A lot of Christians never thought that rest is spiritual, as if you rest, if you take a break, you're actually breaking God's heart. But you got to remember, and you have to understand that you're not pleasing God through your doing. None of our doing would make God love us more or reward us more. All our doing is our response towards His abundance of love to us. So in other words, if you don't do, He wouldn't be angry like, okay, Aaron, it's been 2 weeks. No, He would not. He was like, okay, you want a break? Take it. So don't feel guilty to take a break. But I'm not saying to people who do not want to serve. If you don't want to serve, I'm not forcing you to. I'm just concluding that you have not come into that relationship that would move you to want to give everything back to God. You can take your time, doesn't matter. But by doing it, it would not move God closer to you. And by doing that, it will not make God wants to reward you more. He loves you perfectly. He would want to bless you perfectly. What we do, what we serve, It's actually our response and our gift back to God. So, and this would bring me to this question: how do you strengthen your faith when you're distant from God? By the way, the word distant is not a definition of geographical position. God never leaves you. He lives inside of you. The reason you feel distant is not because He left you. The reason you feel distant is because guilt and shame distance you from Him. The only time we feel distant is when we feel guilty or we feel shameful. It's because of what we have done. We are not proud of what we've done, and we feel distant, and then plus the devil tries to accuse you, to make you feel unworthy, that he's angry at you, but he's actually, the matter of fact, he's not. Because he loves you perfectly, he can't hate you. He is love. He's not a person that has love. He is love. And love lives inside of us. He can do nothing other than love. So if we feel distant, usually the reason is because there's something inside of us that would want us to run away from Him because we feel guilty and shameful. The same response appeared when Adam and Eve was disobedient. When they disobeyed God, the first response was shame. That's why they hid themselves and they said, when God appeared and God was asking, where are you? When God was asking Adam and Eve, where are you? That wasn't because God needed a geographical location to pinpoint where they were. God knew where they were. The reason God asked, because God wanted them to realize where they were, where they didn't supposed to be. Where are you, Adam? That question is actually to make Adam realize that he has moved to the place that he shouldn't be, and he should go back to the place where he should. So when God asked, where are you? What have you done? Not because God did not know where they were and what they've done, but God was giving them an opportunity of choice instead of running away because of shame and guilt. Because when they hid themselves, they said, we're here, we're naked. And then God asked them, who told you that you were naked? There are new information. There are new information given to them, something that shouldn't come to them. Who told you that you're naked? You're not naked. You've been like that your whole life, ever since you were created. Who told you that you're naked? So there were new information that came that changed them. They felt guilty. They felt shameful. And God said, what have you done? So, usually guilt and shame would block you, would cause you to want to run from God. If you would understand that what you need is a confession. Because assume that Adam and Eve would have done this. Okay, I don't know why we were hiding. I guess we're shameful because of what we've done. God asked them again, what have you done then? God knew already, but the reason God asked is actually to give them the opportunity to confess. We have broken your command. We have been disobedient. Forgive us for what we've done. Do you think if they've done that, God would still cast them out? Of course not. The reason God gave them the chance, because God wanted them to stay. If God wanted to cast them out, God would have done it in the beginning without asking all those rhetorical questions. Those are not rhetorical questions. Where are you? How are you? No. God was giving them the chance to actually fix what they've done. If they would have stood up and said, we are so wrong, forgive us, they would not be casted out. So, coming back to the matters of heart, how do we fight anxiety? I think if I finish this question, I think we would call this a day, all right? Looking at all the energy level, I think it should be it. So let me give you this framework to work with in regards of how to take care of your mind or heart. Ever since yesterday, we know that our hearts and mind is the canvas where our thoughts are sown, and that would actually affect our actions and then the results of our lives. So we all have 5 senses to actually absorb what happens around us. The 5 senses are actually the filter that comes into your system. So anxiety is actually the inner response towards an outer input. Let me repeat it. Worry, anxiety is actually an inner response towards an outer input. Usually there's something you see, news you heard, right? Actually, from the 5 senses, these 2 are the most important ones to watch and to guard. You wouldn't usually smell something and then feel worried, unless you have a certain traumatic experience before. You get what I'm saying? A certain situation where a certain aroma was associated to that incident, and you are traumatic about that smell. Whenever you smell that, you have that anxiety attack. But usually, the percentage of that is very small, or what you touch. But mostly, it's what you see or what you hear. Some are so traumatic with a certain experience and would cause a certain panic and anxiety when he or she heard something. There was one lady I was counseling. She was traumatic with the noise of paper, for example, because she was raped on a desk, and this was the noise that actually caused that panic and anxiety attack, and took a long time for her to deal with that. So, makes sense to you now? Yeah. So your eyes and your ears are actually the 2 crucial inputs into your system. So hence, be careful of what you read and what you hear, especially when you just woke up in the morning. So most of the social media doesn't really encourage you to be positive, hopeful, and faithful, and and so on. So our eyes and our ears are the inputs. So you have inputs, and then it goes into your system, right? And inside your system, I'm just going to quickly give you this simple explanation. There are 2 crucial parts of it. The one is your memory. It's called the jungle of the memory. It's where you keep all the data. It's the memory of the data. Usually about what happened, when it happened, how it happens. You get what I'm saying? All the data. And then the other one is the memory of the heart. Memory of the feelings, actually, about what happened. So these 2 are memories. So before you can actually take action and decide what to do, your brain or your system, your heart, your inner system, would have to process everything that comes in before you can do something about it. A lot of people are paralyzed because of what has happened in their past, because what they have recorded in their feelings and their memories, what is in their system that paralyzed and hindered them from doing something new. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. No matter what kind of new instructions you give, it doesn't change that person's action, because he or she has no power to do something he wants, but something he or she did not want instead. Does it make any sense to you? Yeah. So the question is, how do I do, or how do I deal with it? So in the Bible, there are 2 key verbs that you can actually pay attention to. Number 1, for the mind, for the memory, for the mind, the word is called renewing our mind. Renew. I'll explain to you what it means to be renewing your mind. And for the memory of your heart, the key word, the verb for it is purifying your heart. So, renew and purify. For your memory, your thoughts, you got to renew it. Get it? Yeah. For the memory of your feelings, you have to purify it. So, if you're okay with it, I'm going to move on, give you another framework. Your mind is like a cupboard or like a storage. It has a certain capacity. If your mind is full, you can never put something new into it unless you throw something out. That's why you have to renew your mind. So, Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, if you would later on open up for yourself, Paul was saying that we need to not, Jason knows that, he has it on his computer. Do not be, let me read it to you then. Just hang on, almost done. 5 more minutes, I'm done. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. Actually, this verse would answer a lot of questions that you've asked about how do I know this is God's will? How do I know that this is God? So one of the key verse would be this one that I'm quoting. And Paul says that do not be conformed, but be what? Transformed. By the renewing of your mind. So, renewing your mind would help you get transformation. The similarity between conform and transform is actually form, the word form. Let me borrow the bottle of water. Borrow yours. So the water inside can only conform. Con means stay inside. So the water can only conform to this form. Get it? So Paul was saying, if you want to change, you need to be transformed. You need to get out of this form. Trans means go across. That's why we have transfer, transatlantic, transmigration. So trans means go across. So if you do not go across the form, you never change. Paul said, do not be conformed. No matter how much you be prayed for, slain in the spirit, you get up, you remain the same. Because the only change, the only transformation, the only change of action you can have is when you transform, when you get out of the form. So the key is you need to identify what is the form. If you don't know what the form is, you can fight against the form, you can change, or you can go across the form. That's why if you identify what the form is, you can renew it and you can replace it with new thoughts. That's why renewing of your mind is actually changing your belief system inside of you. That's what I meant by getting new understanding when you renew the information that's inside of you. A lot of belief system is based on a lot of, apa ya, bahasa Indonesia, tahayul? How do you call it? Myth. Could be myth, could be, a lot of belief system like the Chinese would have, well, many times people ask me, can Christian do this? Can Christian do that? I would ask, where do you get it from? Where do you get it from? Where does it come from? You got to question yourself and then replace it with the Word of God. And I'm going to answer some of the questions that you guys are asking about. Can we do this? Can we do that? Tomorrow, probably, I would address that a little bit to help you to grow up as Christian. One of the questions, let me answer that probably right away. One of the questions is, how about alcohol, Christians and alcohol? Well, if you were baby's Christian, I would say, no alcohol, sin, God is angry. Of course, you're not baby Christian anymore. God will not be angry with you even though you're drunk, right? But it doesn't mean that you're like, okay, let's go. Bavarian beer. Right? It doesn't mean that way. But you know what? But I've seen pastors were saying, alcohol, sin. Even the wine in the holy matrimony has no alcohol in it. But what does the Bible say? Do you think when Jesus was doing the Holy Communion, the wine was Ribena or Fanta? It was wine. It was real wine, fermented wine. So, however, you have to understand that it takes maturity to understand context. I would not drink alcohol in the public anymore. Even though I grew up in Germany, well, I spent a lot of time in Germany. Beer was much cheaper than water. Right. But now living in Indonesia as a pastor, I just feel like it's socially inappropriate for me to drink. It's not a theological question. It's a social preferences. It's a social preference. I would not drink alcohol. Even though if it would be theological, beer may be probably spiritual than wine, because beer has only 4% alcohol, and wine has 17-18% alcohol. Right. Beer would be more spiritual, but it just doesn't look right when a pastor with the big glasses of beer, empty glasses in front of him. It's just inappropriate. So a lot of questions we ask in life is about the form that we believe, and many forms of it, many forms that form our lives, comes from social, comes from culture, and comes from expectations. So if you want to set yourself free from anxiety, you have to start identifying why. So if you don't start renewing the way you think and start purifying how you feel, it's actually letting go your inner life, because this is your inner life, will never be satisfied or happy. 2 minutes, okay? I want to share with you my experience because I was reminded on something when I saw the spaghetti at the back. I never liked spaghetti. Okay, don't feel bad, Irene. It's not your fault. Because why? Because it went all the way back to Germany. I was a student in Germany, and the canteen food sucks in Germany. Right? The first time for me to taste spaghetti was the spaghetti in the canteen at school. Really sucked. Tasted awful. I never liked spaghetti ever again. But let me share with you my first experience of spaghetti. When I look at it, at the counter, it looks really attractive. And when I took a picture of that in my mind, I immediately sent that picture, that scanned picture, into my system and searched for responses. When my brain was telling me, bakmi goreng. Right. Because as an Indonesian, first time going overseas, you've never tasted spaghetti and you didn't know how or what to expect. You never tasted it before. When you scan that picture and compare it to your system, your brain is telling you, bakmi goreng. And there's some more basah, wet. Bakmi goreng Jawa. Immediately, my system is putting up a response, and I was starting to drool, looking at spaghetti. Then I said to the lady, yes, one please. Took it back to my table, prayed over it, thank God for bakmi goreng. And then starting to put that first scoop or first roll of spaghetti into my tongue. And once it hit my tongue, my senses, it sends a certain signal to my system to compare with what I was expecting. And between what you expected and what you experience, if it is lower, it is called disappointment. If it surpasses your expectation, it's called surprise, satisfaction. Guess what? In my case, it was a huge disappointment. When I tasted it, my system said, yucks. I wanted to vomit. I quit. I stopped eating. Ever since, my memory of feelings recorded that response, and every time I see spaghetti, guess what I remember? I wish. The only way I can make peace with spaghetti is to give him another chance. It has been 40 years, and I'm still doing so. Right. So I was giving spaghetti another chance today. Yeah, I did. Even though it was only like a little bit of it. I took a lot of gado-gado though. So this is your inner being. You are the only one who is responsible for your own happiness. There are a lot of hurts that Hannah was recording because of what I did. And I have apologized many, many times. And she has forgiven me many, many times. She knows it for sure. However, for this to heal, it takes time. It's called continuously purifying your heart. Keep on letting it go. Keep on renewing your mind. It is not a one-time process. It's not a one-time event where you come forward, somebody going to lay hand on you, and then, bam, you're going to forget everything. Right? So when we receive Jesus, our habits and our belief system didn't just go away. True? If Jesus would have wiped out this, you would have forgotten your name, your account number, your saving, everything. For that sake, to keep you, there are a lot of other stuff that remains in you. That's why you need to continuously renew your mind and purify your heart. I hope this makes sense. This helps you. I suppose I've dragged it over time, or am I on time? Or? Seriously? All right. I think that would be it. Who will take over the next? You are? All right.